Hello everybody, my name is Sophie Heerwijk and I'm a lecturer at West University of Applied Sciences. I teach at the Department of Preschool and Primary Education. And in this short video, I'm going to explain you a bit how I worked with online lessons during the Corona crisis, but also share a bit of the experiences of my colleagues. So in March, when we had to change rapidly to online education, I chose to work with live stream lessons. And before explaining you why I did this, I'm first going to show you the online environment that we use for live stream lessons at our university. So this is big blue button, you might know this. And in the live stream lessons, there's first of all, a webcam integrated, so students can not only hear me, but also see me. There was a PowerPoint presentation in which you can follow all my slides. Then here at the left side, there's a chat box in which students can communicate with me, write to me, write answers or questions. And completely at the left, I can see users. So now there's only my name, but normally I can see a list of all the students that are attending my class. And as you can see, there's an image of a microphone, which means that students can also, they can not only write to me, but also put on their microphone to ask questions or to answer me. So this is the online environment. Now, why do I work with live stream lessons? Well, I thought that students locked in their homes might feel a need to connect with me, to connect with their lecturer by seeing and hearing me, rather than just writing emails to me. So I thought that this need for connection, for seeing a lecturer, might be really important for students. Second, I thought that if I just see students and hear them on a regular basis, that they might feel fewer barriers to communicate with me about their concerns, their difficulties, their worries, rather than if they only write me or communicate with me by email. And I felt that this was also really the case, that students at the end of the lesson often asked me, how do you know something about our internship? Or we are really worried about the exams, we don't know how everything's going to go, or will we be able to finish our studies this year, and so on. So I felt that students just seeing me and hearing me often, it made it easier for them to talk with me also about issues that were not directly related to my lessons. And then third, knowing that students have a lot of difficulties with self-regulation, even at university, I thought that it might be easier if they just had to be present during a live stream lesson rather than working with self-study. Because I saw that some of my colleagues just opted for self-study, so they told students like, okay, there's a chapter online, you can read it now, and then when you finish, there are some questions that you can use for checking whether you understood everything. But what happened, as I expected, students did not always do this, especially when the sun was shining outside. They would rather be enjoying the sun than being in front of their computer, reading a chapter that they could easily also read the evening or the day after that, or next week maybe. And in a short time, students really had lots of troubles because they were behind with the lessons and didn't see anymore how they could be prepared for the exams. While when there were live stream lessons, students feel more obliged to be there and to follow the lessons at the foreseen moments, and so they could easily cope with the material that they had to go through, and they could cope more easily with their lessons. So that were a bit the reasons why I chose for live stream. Now maybe a bit more about my experiences during a live stream lesson. So I'll go back to big blue button. So as I told you before, there's a chat box here, and actually I worked with students just in a normal class setting. So I was just teaching them, explaining them, and I told them that at every moment they could just stop me by writing me in the chat box, ask for more explanations, more examples, ask questions, share their ideas. So I try to work really interactively. But of course, when you are explaining something and at the meantime you have to read what students are saying in the chat box, that's not always so easy for you as a lecturer. So some of my colleagues, especially when they were teaching larger groups of 60, 70 students, just teach for 10 minutes, then gave a short break in which they said, okay, now you can use a chat box and ask questions. Now, that's not really my preferred way of working. If I'm only having 30, 40 students, I prefer just giving them the ability to write me all the time, because I feel that's more like a normal classroom situation and more like the spontaneous interaction that you normally have. And students were, more eager to just ask me more examples, to communicate with me, sometimes write me jokes. So it was just more like natural and spontaneous, and I would really recommend trying this way of working. I think not every lecturer likes it this way, but I felt that for students this was really nice. I could just share their thoughts at any moment with me. Then another point, important point when using live stream is that I didn't choose only to work with live stream, but I also recorded all the lessons. So I just recorded the whole lesson, the whole live stream lesson, with the chat box, and everything was just recorded. My entire screen was recorded so that students could watch the lessons also afterwards. Why did I work this way? Well, often students were having internet troubles, and then they were completely freaking out because they were missing a part of the explanation. So I could just say to them like, okay, everything's recorded. If you're gone for a while because your internet is having difficulties, you can just watch it afterwards, watch the part that you missed. But also if students have to work at home, they don't always have a quiet environment during the day. Some had to go to work because they were combining work and study. Others had to take care of their brothers and sisters that were younger and couldn't go to school. So by also recording my lessons, I also gave students the opportunity to follow the lessons at another moment during the day when they really had to. And I felt that students really appreciated this. First, they really appreciated it, but second, they also had the idea like, okay, I'm going to the live stream lessons whenever I can, and when it's not possible, then there's a solution for me. So, as I said, that's the way I worked. My colleagues more often worked with self-study, so they just put on chapters, they put on online little tests that students could make to make sure that they understood everything. And then they created some sort of forum in which students could ask questions, could discuss with each other, which also worked for students, but we called our students last semester, we called our students 2 times to make sure that they were okay. And during these telephone calls, students told us that they really preferred the live stream lessons and seeing and hearing a lecturer rather than just being in front of the screen with a chapter full of information that they had to work through themselves. So I think if you opt for self-study, that is really important, that you still have enough communication with students. And that doesn't mean that I never asked them to read something or to watch a movie before my lessons. But I always had this online moment in which I discussed the material with them. So this is a bit how I worked and what the experiences of my students were and my colleagues were. And I hope this can give you a bit of input to improve what you are doing or to think about what you're doing. And if you have any helpful ideas for me, I would be really glad to hear them from you.